BTV News analysis at 12. The top stories. Senator Oluremi Tinubu commends Office of the National Security Advisor for ensuring the safe return of abducted students. Power sector players say changing ownership of the electricity distribution companies discourse will not resolve Nigeria's power supply problems. Data from the World Bank reveals 99.9% of poor and vulnerable Nigerians yet to get monthly 25,000 naira cash transfers. Details coming up. Hi, I am Omohefe Peace Osemer. Now let's begin with the First Lady, Senator Oluremi Tinubu. She has declared that learning and education were veritable weapons in the fight against terrorism and criminality by individuals and communities. Senator Oluremi made the declaration while speaking at the State House, Abuja, where she received 4 of the 5 rescued students of Federal University, Dusemma. Mrs. Tinubu, while noting that the experience of the rescued students and that of other Nigerians who had been kidnapped was difficult, further encouraged that this phase would pass with the determination and tenacity of the security and intelligence forces and the support of all Nigerians. She also commended the role of the Office of the National Security Advisor and the effective coordination of law enforcement agencies who worked diligently over the past few months to ensure the safe return of the student and every Nigerian held against their will. The First Lady assured the girls of the federal government's commitment and that of the Renewed Hope initiative to support them physiologically, psychologically, and with their education as they begin their healing after more than 70 days in captivity. And now to other matters, where the federal government spent 375.8 billion naira on electricity subsidy between January and September this year. It was gathered that power consumers paid a total of 782.6 billion naira for the commodity during the same period. Also, power distribution companies billed electricity users a total of 1.06 trillion naira nationwide during the 9-month period, but collected 782.6 billion naira despite the blackouts in many parts of Nigeria. Now, the latest power subsidy figures obtained in Abuja from the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, an agency of the federal government, showed that the government subsidized electricity in the first, second, and third quarters of 2023. On subsidy payment, it was observed that in the first quarter of the year, the federal government subsidized power by 336 billion naira. Now, this is an increase to 135.2 billion in the second quarter and jumped to 204.6 billion in the third quarter. While figures for the fourth quarter are not out, NERC said reasons for the subsidy in its just released third quarter 2023 report was due to the absence of cost-reflective tariffs. Meanwhile, power sector players in the country have told the federal government that changing the ownership of the electricity distribution companies discourse will not resolve Nigeria's power supply problems. Recall that the Minister of Power, Mr. Adebayo Adelabu, had last week advocated for the sale of gas to power in Nigeria to eliminate the volatility occasioned by the transactions being done in dollars. But stakeholders at the maiden edition of a Nigerian electricity supply industry market participants and stakeholders roundtable in Abuja, which was reportedly attended by over 300 professionals, said implementing a cost-reflective tariff regime was necessary. Participants at the seminar included academics, industry practitioners, policymakers, and regulators. Well, in a communique after the event, which was signed by the Chairman, Central Planning Committee, and the Secretary of the conference, Professor Stephen Ogaji and Bode Fadigbe, respectively, the participants identified insufficient power generation capacity, poor utilization of power generated, and stranded generation capacity as key issues in the sector. Now let's head on to other matters now, where the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, NAFDAC, says additional measures have been put in place to curb the incidence of unbranded cereals and other food items of industrial sizes According to a statement by the resident media consultant to NAFDAC, Shayo Akintola, the Director General, Professor Majishola Adeye, said going forward, the agency would be more critical with the process of issuing permits for importation of bulk food raw materials from 2024. The agency stated this at the end of year stakeholders' open dialogue and feedback session with food manufacturing companies. Adeye, who was represented by the Director of Food Safety and Applied Nutrition, Mrs. Eva Edwards, said that the agency was concerned about the perennial problem of ubiquity of bulk food items that are found in the market, possibly from the manufacturing plant or their suppliers, describing it as unacceptable. According to her, the agency had put in place additional measures for assessing and verifying the utilization record of each company that applies for import permits to import bulk food raw materials. You're watching PNB TV News Analysis. Still to come, data reveals that only 0.1% of targeted poor and vulnerable households received federal government cash transfer of 25,000 naira per month. Details after this break. Right, welcome back. You're watching News Analysis live on Politics and Business Television. Data from the World Bank has revealed that only 0.1% of targeted poor and vulnerable households have received the federal government recently launched cash transfer of 25,000 naira per month. During his presentation of the Nigeria Development Update, December 2023 edition, the World Bank's lead economist for Nigeria, Alex Seniart, disclosed that currently 1.5 million households have received money, and the program is expected to reach 5 million households by the end of December. According to him, this also means that 99.9% of the targets are yet to get their monthly 25,000 naira cash transfers, despite the overwhelming hardship in the country. The Punch newspaper reports that the disbursement may have been hampered by a low number of poor and vulnerable people with national identity numbers. A criterion, needed to receive the cash transfer. Now, to discuss this, I have with me an economist, Malam Yusha Aliyu. Good afternoon to you, Malam Yusha Aliyu.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Thank you so much for joining us on News Analysis.
Thank you. Right,
now let's quickly assess government's intervention programs. It's really a bit disturbing and one would say laughable to hear that, with so much has been said by the federal government to alleviate the sufferings of, Nigerians, especially at a time that policies have been introduced. Of course, we know the impact that has had, on Nigerians. Now, according to, the World Bank lead economist for Nigeria, Alex, he says only 0.1% of targeted poor and vulnerable households have received the federal government's recently launched cash transfer of 25,000 naira per month. Let's get your own, thought on this.
Even when supplementary budget was submitted last month, November, and was passed into law, what we saw in it was $1.5 billion loan, and it is targeted to pay this household, vulnerable household. What is more significant enough is that out of the report, Mr. Alex pointed out insufficient data. This insufficient data has resulted as a result of this administration not taking over previous data, which they concluded that it was sufficient data. There is need to be more proactive, and there is need to be more organized as people, and at the same time also one consequence of delaying it is that more people will be subjected to more dangerous situation.
All right. Before we talk more about the implication of this, I mean, because 0.1%, that is equivalent to 99% of, the target that I get to get your monthly 25,000 naira cash transfer.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, when the federal government actually made it public that they will be paying 25,000 naira to a number of Nigerians for 3 months, and that makes 75,000 naira, it actually caused some sort of stir across social media platforms, because some Nigerians at the time were like, how do you pay 25,000 naira to a household? Let's say we have 6 people in one family. How is 25,000 naira going to cater for their needs? So let's get your own, assessment first of all. What do you make of the price that has been, pegged, by the federal government in the first place? 25,000 naira. What can that actually, get an average Nigerian?
Cannot achieve more, but it can assist for people to survive. Remember that even when you are talking of those who are more productive in an economy, the concept of minimum wage has to be changed to living wage. And since workers that are even working are not having living wage, there is no way those who are even autonomous consumers can have an income that will sustain them over a period. It is disturbing, but it is important to understand and also to agree that even that 25,000 naira, if it's going to be disbursed, is going to assist the vulnerable ones, because some under United Nations Human Capital Development, food is first, second is health. The health issues, many people are surviving without medical care at all. So with 25,000 naira, at least primary health care can be attended to. But we have seen also where individuals, household are facing dramatic challenges in the sense that even if they are to participate, none of them is having a bank. Many of them doesn't have verification numbers. And that is why before embarking on any policy that will have adverse effect on the entire population, there is need also to check the situation report.
All right. Yes, I'm sorry to butt you once again, Malam Usually. You talked about feeding, you talked about health. Of course, these are very, very important points. But you also talk about transportation.
No, for those autonomous, they are not even going anywhere. It is expected that they remain where they are because they are unemployed. Look at the statistics of the Bureau of Statistics that were released in January 2023, where over are part of poverty club. So if you have that number, the provision that was made cannot even contain 10% of that number.
Aren't you going to see an upward review? I mean,
not
by the
only
end of the
upward
year?
review. You see, what this economy is looking is not to continue to give palliative or to give a social adjustment program issues. What the economy is to stabilize the economy and to create an environment where those who are farmers can go back to farm. We are in a situation where you are having more number of people being displaced, and they are living in IDP camps. So even if you have to take care of those who are on IDP camps, the amount of money that you are now postulating or the government is postulating cannot keep them, because what is the size of the family is not the average family in Africa or in Nigerian context is a nuclear family. You don't have 2 people, you have 4, you have 10, you have 20, and all these categories require so much of attention by the economy for having job, not only having job, for having a sustainable income to maintain them. And this is also good for the GDP projection. You cannot be predicting an economy in the 6 years period to be $1 trillion economy when greater number of people are not working, when greater number of people are going to be depending on palliatives that doesn't have to come at the time they are expecting it. In my own opinion, there is need to double effort to make consultation and to even create an avenue where even those individuals who doesn't have this can quickly be accessing the financial institution and in the institution in charge of registration for them to be identified. Well,
will it be intelligent to say that the absence of proper data capturing as to, I mean, because this is the reason we understand has actually stalled, the whole process. Will it be intelligent to say that it is deliberate, and then this palliative era that we find ourselves, it is some sort of stomach infrastructure we're dealing with?
No, you see, the greatest problems emanate from the policy measure taken, removal of subsidy, and there is nothing on ground. It should be gradual issue. If I am to remove a certain intervention in my household, I have to first of all understand the size of my household, understand what measures are necessary to keep my household, because the responsibility is on me. That's exactly what applied to government. If you are to remove subsidy, you are aware that you are going to cause a lot of disturbances. And in causing disturbances, the size of those who are going to be affected must be known to you, must be identified. And right measures, policies, and good time for efficiency has to be achieved. These are the things that we are always getting it wrong. That is why the World Bank is now telling the world that it is a scenario. Remember, Bureau of Statistics did not tell Nigerians the situation on ground. The Minister of Humanitarian Services did not tell Nigerians the situation of ground. It is the United Nations, it is the World Bank that is telling us. Do you know the reason? Because we bought.
Also implies some sort of undue interference, because of course last week the comments made by the World Bank also sparked some sort of controversy. Of course, we saw the federal government coming out to say that no, what the World Bank is saying about we subsidizing petrol or not, it is not true. This is our stand, in that just 0.1% of targeted poor and vulnerable households have received federal government's recently launched cash transfer of 25,000 naira per month. Is this some sort of checks and balance that the World Bank is doing?
The two scenarios are different. The scenario for removal of subsidy has to do with the size of deficit in governance revenue. This one also is as a result that the amount to be paid for this intervention is a borrowed fund. So if certain amount of money is borrowed, $1.5 billion, remember it was a borrowed fund, and the World Bank has to know clearly how much is accessed, how much is this. So it's not an intervention in this case. But in the other case, it is a wrong intervention for the World Bank to come in and tell us that we are to buy PMS at the cost of 750 naira, knowing fully what that price can cost to the economy in terms of instability, in terms of political stability, and in terms of even welfare. So in my own opinion, yes, of course, we are signatories to World Bank. We are even we are participating regularly. We are part of this international monetary movement, and the central bank cannot be removed out of context because of the size of borrowing, because of the size of deficit that we are experiencing, and because of the concern of the bank about poverty eradication. At whatever context, the central bank in this context is a good information for us Nigerians and for the government in particular to try as much as possible to take a cue in trying to maintain more reasonable and comprehensive data for use of any policy of government.
All right, before we talk about how that can be achieved, we understand that this is a loan, that was sourced, from the World Bank.
Yes.
Well, will it be right to also say that the World Bank should, be backlashed as well? Because if you're actually lending money to a country or an entity, maybe you should do some sort of background search, to know and be convinced before you give out these loans. So do you think the World Bank should actually share in this blame? Because this is not the first time loans have been gotten from different, and at the end of the day we have issues with how well these monies have been utilized.
Mofe, there is a doctrine of moral suasion, there is doctrine of transparency. All these things are contained. All the documents signed by Nigeria before accessing any fund has certain obligations, and these obligations are clear. See, the World Bank has a representative, Alex Sinad, in Nigeria. So for him to now come and tell and bring out this in December is a good indication, it's a good information for policy planners to understand that the lender is aware of our inefficiency. This is the clear issue. And this inefficiency is as a result of malpractices with our own hand. Malpractices how? The information that was gathered over years for those who are to be beneficiaries is incorrect, is full of jargons, and cannot be used by this administration. But there is time for the new minister also.
So are you indirectly putting the blame on the previous administration?
No, I mean, for all of us. Okay. Because for government, it is an extension. For policymakers, they have that trust from people that to maintain a good register. So it is unfortunate if the blame is coming from a government, not from me, because I did not access the information. It is this government that have access to that information, and it is still this government that said that they are not going to make use of it because it is not consistent enough to be used as a document. These are information that is coming.
Now, do you see this revelation having any bite on the federal government? Because it's supposed to be a kind of, how will I put it, something that should make the government, you know, take a step backward and perhaps look inwards, because it is really laughable, one would say. 99.9% of the targets, they are yet to get this monthly 25,000 naira. This is 25,000, not even 100,000 naira.
Yes.
25,000 naira is even below the minimum wage. And recently, the NLC, they've all come out to say that henceforth, if you're going to review the minimum wage, it should be in line with, you know, the living.
You see, it's not even laughable issue. It's a disturbing issue. Disturbing in the sense that some people are languishing in disaster, and we have seen it through social media. Number of households, especially those who are autonomous in know what to do in an economy, or those who are even displaced. In my own opinion, good information like this one, we're supposed to dwell on it and then put pressure on government, and government to understand that from different quarters, from the lender to the end user, are not comfortable with the trend, and we need more effectiveness and we need more efficiency. And at the same time also, I am not concerned about the figure to be disbursed, because if 25,000 is to be disbursed to individuals, and presently we are having at least 2-3 months, when you put 25,000, it is still not friendly, but it is an intervention which must be comprehended. What I mean by comprehended is that it is the money that has been designed by law to benefit those who are vulnerable. And it is high time for them to enjoy this facility, no matter how small it is. And if we are to put an end to this kind of intervention, remember, economists, including myself, we argue so much about borrowing to consume. We cannot borrow to consume. What we expected, even instead of borrowing, the savings made from the subsidy can be distributed, because at the initial stage, Mr. President alerted Nigerians that he has made a saving of 1 trillion naira. That 1 trillion naira, if you divide 1 trillion naira by 25, you will see how the number of households that...
No, it's about 4 trillion, if not more.
So if it is above 4 trillion, there is no need. That's why sometimes we said we should always look at the commitment we are going into, because of the cost implication and financial implication that is attached to them. It is well aware by every standard. Healthy for our democracy, and it is not even office holder to have the situation